doesn't happen on the recording doesn't happen on this computer. It happens on a Skype server.
Okay.
And then later you can download both sides.
That's very cool. Because I've been using a separate piece of software to record, but I've never been able to properly sort out the audio. So my voice is really loud and yours is really quiet on all the recordings I have.
I see. Okay.
Hopefully this will be a little better.
Probably, yes, since the microphones are supposed to be on automatic.
Yeah.
Well, not too many of the talks have gotten online, just because Skype has difficulty in the recording. But now that we have the ability to do the recordings, I'll be recording every one of them, and we'll see whether or not we won't even bother to see whether they're worthwhile doing or not. We'll probably just post them without edits.
Yeah, excellent. It's all valuable stuff, huh?
So, what's happening?
Well, I've been suffering. and working with the breathing thing that we discussed last time.
Mm-hmm. So,
and I guess it helps to some degree. It's not like I start breathing and everything turns to gold.
The question that I would have would be this first thing that you said of suffering. Is that something that you're newly bringing on, or is it something that you're digging into, or is it something that's been there but it's getting bigger? What do you mean by that?
All of the above.
And so this is actually mindfulness that you're speaking of. The ability to identify suffering.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-hmm. That's actually a better way to describe it than just merely saying suffering, because you're not suffering with a smile on your face. You're actually seeing the suffering, which is actually a whole lot better than being stuck in it, not knowing what it is, but enduring it. In fact, that's one of the old classical definitions of the word suffering, is difficult to endure, which is different than the classical definition of the word anicca, which is difficult to maintain. But when you see the way that anicca, difficult to maintain, and dukkha, difficult to endure, how close they are together in those two classical definitions.
Yeah.
But when we get the more modern definitions of that anicca means everything is temporary, and that dukkha means suffering, then we don't see that relationship. But when we get it back down to the bare roots of it, is difficult to maintain. It's a little slightly different than difficult to endure, but oh, how related they are.
Yeah.
They're very related in the regard of that, and I would say the difficulty comes in for the individual's lack of skill in some cases. And part of that skill would be the wisdom of knowing what's worth trying to maintain and that which is not worth trying to maintain, as opposed to learning what's worthy of enduring as opposed to what's not worthy of enduring, which is a little bit...
That's so on the mark. How do you know?
Well, we have been, digging into this stuff together, and so this is, I've identified this as to where you are, and so I'm just merely speaking on it. And in fact, the way that I'm introducing it is also through Dr. Watkins of that vertical axis. How much adrenaline are we going to put into this system? And there's actually, in a way of looking at it, the cost-benefit analysis. In other words, if we're going to put adrenaline into it, then how much benefit are we going to get out of that adrenaline?
Right.
And the way that he's approaching it is that he's talking about it as passion, with the kind of understanding that if somebody, his client, is already a CEO, then they're already capable of being winners. They're already in the winner's circle. They're already in that top quadrant. That in fact what he's really working on is to help them stay in that top quadrant. And that what we're wanting to do is to investigate whether that top quadrant on the left is really all that worthwhile or not.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so in that regard, if you are the CEO of your life, then recognizing the more passion that you have for that life, the more effort and the more struggle and the more, let us say, justification for that behavior.
Yep.
And the justification for that behavior is almost always, with most people, rooted in the ignorance of I want. That's based upon the feeling of I like. All right? And really, he was really right or spot on when he said, and I wanted to cover this with you and see if you remember. Do you remember what he said about the breath was able to take you halfway there?
Yeah, into the center.
Into the center, and that he drew that line about how that it works, and that basically what it is that the breathing